I was heading down to grab my mail when Gerald stopped me at the elevator, his face pale and hands shaking. He asked if I knew who'd been visiting my apartment every Tuesday. My stomach dropped. Gerald explained. Head installed a hidden camera in the hallway after some packages went missing, and Head caught something disturbing on tape. He pulled out his phone, and there on the screen was my own brother, Bradley, using my key to let himself into my home, moving through my rooms like he owned the place, opening drawers and taking things while I was at my weekly volunteer shift. Gerald led me back to his apartment, his hand gripping my elbow like he thought I might collapse. Maybe he was right to worry. My legs felt unsteady as we walked through his door, past his collection of military photographs and into his small living room where his computer sat on a cluttered desk. He pulled up the security footage, and I sank into the chair beside him. The timestamp showed 11:07 in the morning, last Tuesday. There was Bradley, clear as day, walking down our hallway with the casual confidence of someone who belonged there. He glanced around once, then slid my key into the lock and disappeared inside my apartment. Gerald clicked to another angle. Head positioned the camera cleverly, catching part of my doorway. We couldn't see everything, but we could see Bradley entering and leaving. Gerald had compiled 6 weeks of footage, every single Tuesday, same time. I felt sick watching my own brother betray me like this. Gerald fast-forwarded through several visits, and a pattern emerged. Bradley would arrive, stay for approximately 40 to 50 minutes, then leave carrying nothing obvious. But Gerald had noticed my brother's jacket pockets looked fuller when he left. My mind raced back through our history. Bradley and I grew up together in Detroit, in a cramped house on the east side where the paint peeled and the heating barely worked through winter. Our father left when Bradley was 3 and I was 7. I became the man of the house by default, protecting my little brother from the neighborhood kids who sensed weakness, teaching him everything I knew about surviving in a world that didn't care much about boys like us. I'd helped Bradley countless times over the decades. When he fell into drinking in his 20s, I paid for his first rehab stint. Cost me nearly $8,000 I didn't really have. When that didn't take, I paid for a second round 3 years later. Another $9,000. I co-signed for his car when no bank would touch him. I'd given him money for rent more times than I could count, always telling him it was a loan but never expecting repayment. 6 months ago, after my knee surgery, Bradley had called sounding better than he had in years. He said Head landed steady work at a warehouse, was staying sober, attending meetings. Head asked for a spare key so he could check on me during recovery, maybe bring groceries or help with errands. I'd given it to him without hesitation. Why wouldn't I? He was my brother, the only family I had left after our mother passed 3 years back. I never asked for that key back. The thought never crossed my mind. Gerald cleared his throat. He was a good man, a retired postal worker who'd lived in the building for 12 years. We'd become friendly over coffee in the lobby, talking about the Tigers and complaining about the building management. I wasn't sure if I should tell you, Gerald said quietly, but I figured you'd want to know. I nodded, unable to speak for a moment. On the screen, Bradley was leaving my apartment again, checking his phone as he walked away. I'm not calling the police, I finally said. Not yet. Gerald looked surprised but nodded. What are you going to do? I need to understand why. There has to be a reason. But even as I said it, I was studying the footage more carefully. Bradley wasn't just randomly grabbing things. There was something methodical about his movements. In one clip, I could see him photographing something with his phone. In another, he was at my filing cabinet, the one where I kept important documents. That's when it hit me. Last year, when we settled our mother's estate, I'd kept all the paperwork in that cabinet. Property deeds, insurance documents, bank statements. We'd each inherited approximately $47,000 after everything was sold and divided equally. I'd invested mine carefully, living off my pension and savings. Bradley had said he was doing the same. Gerald, can you send me all this footage? Already done. Emailed it to you 10 minutes ago. I stood, my knee aching from the sudden movement. I need to set up my own cameras. Inside the apartment, Gerald reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a business card. My nephew sells security equipment. Good stuff, not the cheap garbage. Hell set you up right. The card read Marcus Brennan, Security Solutions. I pocketed it. Thank you, Gerald. You might just saved me from something much worse. As I headed back to my apartment, I pulled out my phone and looked at the footage Gerald had sent. I paused on a frame showing Bradley at my filing cabinet. His expression was intense, focused. He wasn't just stealing random items. He was searching for something specific. And I had a sinking feeling. I knew what it was. Marcus Brennan turned out to be a sharp young man in his early 30s, who asked smart questions and didn't judge when I explained why I needed cameras installed inside my own home. He arrived the next afternoon with a black equipment case and a professional demeanor that reminded me of Gerald. Uncle Gerald filled me in on the basics, Marcus said, walking through my apartment and assessing angles. You want coverage of the main areas without being obvious about it. Exactly. My brother has a key. He comes every Tuesday around 11 in the morning. Marcus nodded, already planning. Well, put one in your living room, hidden in that bookshelf behind the picture frame. One in your bedroom, inside that old clock on your dresser. And one in your office, the most important one, disguised inside the smoke detector. It took him 3 hours to install everything and link it all to an app on my phone. He showed me how to check the live feed, how to review recorded footage, how to set up motion alerts. The cameras are sensitive, he explained. You'll get a notification the second anyone enters. Battery backup in case someone cuts power. Cloud storage, so even if they find and destroy the cameras, you'll have the footage. I paid him $650, money well spent for peace of mind and evidence. After he left, I sat in my living room staring at my phone, testing the camera views. I could see everything clearly. The thought of spying on my own brother made my stomach churn, but I needed to know the truth. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Bradley as a kid, how he'd follow me everywhere. His hero worship so complete and innocent. I remembered teaching him to ride a bike in the alley behind our house, running alongside him until he found his balance. I remembered helping him with homework at our kitchen table, our mother cooking dinner in the background, the smell of onions and peppers filling our small home. Our mother, Eleanor, had been the glue holding us together. Shed worked 2 jobs most of our childhood, cleaning offices at night and working retail during the day. Shed never complained, never made us feel like we were a burden. When she died 3 years ago after a short battle with cancer, Bradley and I had held each other at her funeral and promised to stay close, to honor her memory by being the brothers Shed raised us to be. The inheritance had been a surprise. We knew about the house, which sold for $92,000 after repairs and realtor fees. Split between us, that was $46,000 each. But there was also a life insurance policy neither of us knew about, a small one that added another $1,000 to each of our shares. $47,000 total. I'd used mine to pay off the last of my mortgage and invest the rest in a retirement account. Bradley had said he was doing something similar, being responsible for once in his life. But now I wondered if he'd blown through it all, if desperation had driven him back to my door, not as a brother but as a thief. Tuesday morning arrived with gray skies and the threat of rain. I went through my normal routine, trying to act natural even though my nerves were screaming. I made coffee, read the newspaper, checked my email. At 10:30, I grabbed my jacket and headed out for my volunteer shift at the Detroit Veterans Center, where I helped coordinate meal services every Tuesday and Thursday. Before leaving, I triple-checked the camera app on my phone. All 3 feeds were active and recording. The Veterans Center was a 15-minute drive from my apartment. I'd been volunteering there for 8 years, ever since I retired from my job at the Postal Service. I'd served in Vietnam back in the late 60s, came home to a country that didn't want to acknowledge what we'd been through. The center gave me purpose and community. But that morning, I couldn't focus on anything. I stood in the kitchen helping prepare lunch trays. But my mind was elsewhere. My phone sat in my pocket, waiting to buzz with a motion alert. At 11:14, it happened. I felt the vibration and nearly dropped the tray I was holding. I excused myself quickly, heading to the bathroom and locking myself in a stall. My hands shook as I opened the app. The living room camera showed Bradley entering my apartment, but he wasn't alone. A woman in her 30s walked in behind him, someone I'd never seen before. She had dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a black jacket. She moved with purpose, immediately pointing toward my office. I watched, frozen, as she pulled something from her jacket pocket. It looked like some kind of handheld device. She began moving it along my walls, across my furniture, like she was scanning for something. They weren't just stealing random items. They were searching for something specific, something hidden. I switched to the office camera feed. The woman was directing Bradley now, pointing at my filing cabinet, at my desk drawers. She was clearly in charge. Bradley looked nervous, uncertain, but he did what she told him. My heart pounded as I realized this was bigger than I'd thought. This wasn't just my brother stealing from me out of desperation. Someone was using him, manipulating him into something more sinister. I had to get home. I had to see what they were really after. I told my coordinator at the Veterans Center that I was feeling ill, which wasn't far from the truth. My stomach was in knots as I rushed to my car. The drive home felt eternal. Every red light an eternity. Every slow driver an obstacle between me and the truth. I parked 2 blocks from my building, not wanting to risk Bradley seeing my car in the lot. From this distance, I could watch the camera feeds without alerting them to my presence. On my phone screen, the woman and Bradley were in my bedroom now. Shed pulled on latex gloves, professional and careful. Bradley was watching her, his face troubled, but he followed her lead as she directed him to my closet. They moved through my apartment with disturbing efficiency. She knew exactly where to look, like someone had briefed her on the layout. That's when it clicked. Bradley had been doing reconnaissance for weeks, learning my space, reporting back to her. The office camera showed them returning to my filing cabinet. I watched the woman produce a small toolkit and begin working on the lock of my safe, which sat inside the cabinet's bottom drawer. It took her less than 3 minutes to open it. My safe. The combination was something only I knew, or so I'd thought. But Bradley had been in my apartment dozens of times over the months after my surgery. He could have watched me open it, memorized the numbers. Inside the safe, I kept approximately $3,000 in cash for emergencies, copies of important documents, property deeds, insurance policies, and a small wooden box that had belonged to our mother. The woman's face lit up when she saw the wooden box. She lifted it carefully, examining it from every angle. It was about the size of a shoebox, made of dark walnut wood with brass hinges and a small brass clasp. Our mother had kept it on her dresser for as long as I could remember, but Shed never opened it in front of us. After the funeral, I'd found it among her belongings. It never felt right opening it without Bradley present, and then life got busy, and it had ended up in my safe, still unopened. It assumed it contained old photographs, maybe some letters from our father or other family members. But the way this woman was examining it, turning it over in her gloved hands, suggested it held something far more valuable. I watched them photograph everything in the safe. The woman used her phone to take pictures of my property deeds, my insurance policies, my bank statements. She spent extra time on one document in particular, a faded deed I barely remembered seeing before. Then she carefully placed the wooden box and the cash into a canvas bag Bradley had brought. They put everything else back in the safe, arranging it to look undisturbed. The woman was meticulous, making sure no one would notice anything missing right away. Before they left, The woman made a phone call. I couldn't hear what she was saying through the camera, but I watched her lips move, trying to read them. I caught fragments. The old man doesn't know, and later, worth more than we thought. My blood ran cold. What had my mother left behind that I knew nothing about? They left my apartment at 12:03, Bradley looking back once, with an expression I couldn't quite read. Guilt? Fear? Regret? I waited 10 minutes after they were gone, then drove back to my building and parked in my usual spot. I rode the elevator up, my heart hammering, and entered my apartment. Everything looked normal, untouched. If I hadn't seen the footage, I'd never have known anyone had been there. I opened the filing cabinet and checked the safe. Sure enough, the wooden box was gone. The cash was gone, but they'd left everything else, carefully arranged to maintain the illusion that nothing was wrong. I pulled out my phone and called Bradley. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. Bradley, it's me. Just wanted to see how you're doing. Give me a call when you can. I kept my voice normal, casual, like nothing was wrong. Then I texted him. Hey, want to grab dinner this week? Been too long since we caught up. Hours passed. I paced my apartment, checking my phone constantly, reviewing the camera footage again and again. Finally, at 6:37 in the evening, my phone buzzed. Bradley's text read, Sure, maybe Friday. Been real busy with work. Work? Right. His job at the warehouse that was supposedly going so well. I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. I needed help. Professional help. I searched for the business card Gerald's nephew had given me and found a phone number on the back I hadn't noticed before. Written in pen, for serious problems, call my uncle, former Detroit PD, now private investigator. I dialed the number. A gruff voice answered on the second ring. Marcus Brennan, Investigations. Mr. Brennan, my name is Yolanda Thompson. Your nephew installed some security cameras in my apartment yesterday. I've got a situation that's gotten more complicated than I expected. Tell me about it. I explained everything. The Tuesday visits, the woman, the systematic searching, the stolen wooden box. Marcus listened without interrupting, occasionally making a sound that told me he was taking notes. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I can be at your place in an hour. Bring copies of that footage. We need to figure out who this woman is and what she's really after. While I waited, I called my lawyer. A patient man named Howard Chenhood handled my mother's estate. No, wait. His name was Howard. Howard Richmond. Had worked with our family for years. Howard, it's Yolanda Thompson. I need to ask you something about my mother's estate. Of course, Yolanda. What's on your mind? Was there any property that wasn't included in the distribution? Anything that might have been overlooked? Howard was quiet, and I heard papers rustling. Actually, now that you mention it, there was something. Your mother owned a second property upstate, near a town called Grayling. It was purchased back in the late 70s, before you were born. Paid off decades ago. My heart stopped. What happened to it? The deed should have been in her personal effects. We looked for it during probate but never found it. Without the deed, we couldn't include it in the estate distribution. I assumed it had been sold years ago and Shed just lost the paperwork. What would that property be worth now? More rustling. Let me check comparable sales in that area. Properties up there have appreciated significantly. I'd estimate, conservatively, somewhere around $320,000. Maybe more, depending on condition and exact location. $320,000, split between Bradley and me. That was $160,000 each. That's what they were after. The deed to a property worth a fortune, sitting forgotten in our mother's wooden box. Marcus Brennan arrived at my door at exactly 8:03 that evening. He was in his late 50s, built solid like a man who'd spent years on the street as a cop. His handshake was firm, his eyes sharp and assessing as he walked through my apartment. We sat at my kitchen table, and I showed him all the footage. He watched in silence, occasionally asking me to pause or rewind. When I got to the part with the woman, he leaned closer to the screen. "That scanning device she's using," Marcus said, "that's a stud finder, used in construction. She was checking if anything was hidden inside your walls. They took my mother's wooden box. My lawyer just told me there's a property deed that should have been in that box, worth approximately $320,000. Marcus whistled low. "That's motive enough for serious crime. Let me run the woman's face through some databases, see if I can identify her." He took screenshots from the footage and worked on his laptop while I made coffee. 20 minutes later, he had results. "Christine Holloway," Marcus said, turning his screen to show me a police database photo. 34 years old, rap sheet going back 12 years. Fraud, identity theft, forgery. She targets vulnerable people, gains their trust through accomplices, then manipulates them into scams. My stomach dropped. Bradley's the accomplice. Looks that way. Let me dig into your brother's recent activity. What Marcus found over the next hour painted a devastating picture. Bradley had met Christine 8 months ago at a gambling support group in Warren, a suburb north of Detroit. Instead of helping him stay on track, Shed identified him as a mark, someone with access to potential money through family connections. Marcus showed me Christine's pattern. Shed done this before, at least 4 times in the past 7 years. Shed befriend someone struggling with addiction or financial problems, convince them that a family member was hiding assets, then manipulate them into helping her steal. "The thing is," Marcus said, pulling up more records, "your brother might actually believe you cheated him. Look at this." He showed me text messages Head pulled from Bradley's phone records. It required a contact inside the phone company, and I didn't ask questions. The messages showed Christine sending Bradley fabricated documents, fake bank statements that made it look like Id received more inheritance money than Id claimed. "She's good," Marcus said grimly. "These forgeries are sophisticated. Your brother probably genuinely thinks you've been lying to him." The messages broke my heart. Bradley writing to Christine, "Are you sure? This doesn't feel right." "Has my brother," Christine's response. "Your brother has controlled you your whole life. He thinks you're weak. Has always thought he was better than you. Take what's rightfully yours." More messages. Bradley expressing doubt. Christine pushing harder, playing on every insecurity my brother had ever felt. "There's more," Marcus said. "Christine has a partner, guy named Vincent Caruso, career criminal, specializes in document forgery. They've been working together for 3 years. He pulled up Vincent's photo. Hard eyes, a scar across his left cheek, the look of someone who'd spent time in prison. Vincent's dangerous. Marcus continued. Assault charges, armed robbery. If he's involved, this isn't just fraud anymore. These people don't leave witnesses. The implications hit me hard. Bradley was in over his head, working with criminals who wouldn't hesitate to eliminate him once he was no longer useful. Marcus kept digging, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Got something. Christine's renting an apartment in Royal Oak under a false name. Sarah Mitchell. Wait, I mean Sarah Mason. The lease is paid through a shell company. He pulled up more records, showing me a web of false identities and fake businesses. Here's the worst part, Marcus said, his expression grim. She's already contacted a real estate agent about your mother's property. Listed it under a fake LLC called Northern Holdings Group. She's claiming to be a representative of your mother's estate, authorized to sell. Can she do that without the actual deed? Vincent's already working on forgeries. Look at these emails I found. He showed me intercepted communications between Christine and Vincent. They were discussing document templates, notary stamps, official seals, professional-level fraud. They've scheduled a closing meeting, Marcus said. 3 days from now. Wednesday afternoon at a title company in Grayling. If this goes through, they'll walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars, and your brother will be left holding all the evidence. He'll be the only one the police can trace. I felt cold all over. They're going to frame him. Exactly. Christine and Vincent will disappear, probably have new identities lined up already. Bradley will take the fall for everything. With his record, the gambling problems, the prior issues, he'll go to prison for years. I stood up, pacing my small kitchen. My brother had betrayed me, stolen from me, let himself be used against me. But he was still my brother. The same kid Id taught to ride a bike, protected from bullies, helped through countless crises. What can we do? I asked. Marcus closed his laptop. We go to the police. The FBI. Actually, this is interstate fraud, forged documents, possibly conspiracy to commit wire fraud. They'll want this case. Will Bradley go to prison? Probably. But if he cooperates, testifies against Christine and Vincent, maybe we can get him a deal. Probation instead of jail time. It depends on how much help he's willing to give. I looked out my kitchen window at the Detroit skyline, the lights of the city Id called home for 72 years. Set up the meeting with the FBI. I said, but before that happens, I need to talk to my brother, face to face. He needs to understand what he's gotten himself into before it's too late. Marcus nodded slowly. That could be dangerous. If Christine suspects Bradley might talk, Vincent could get involved, and that means violence. I don't care. Has my brother. I'm not letting him walk into prison or worse without trying to save him. I texted Bradley early the next morning. How about that dinner tonight instead of Friday? 7 o'clock at Lou's Diner. Louse was a place we'd gone with our mother when we were kids. A classic diner on 8 Mile that had somehow survived decades of Detroit's ups and downs. It felt like neutral ground, a place connected to better memories. Bradley responded an hour later. Sure. See you there. Marcus wanted to come with me, stay nearby in case things went wrong. I agreed but insisted he keep his distance. This conversation needed to happen brother to brother, without intimidation or pressure. I arrived at Lou's at 6:45. The place looked exactly as I remembered from childhood. Red vinyl booths, checkered floor, a long counter with chrome stools. The smell of burgers and coffee filled the air, familiar and comforting. Bradley showed up at 7:04, looking worse than I'd seen him in years. His face was drawn, dark circles under his eyes, his clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. He'd lost weight, his jacket hanging loose on his frame. We slid into a booth in the back corner. A waitress brought water and menus. Neither of us looked at them. Thanks for meeting me, I said, keeping my voice gentle. Bradley nodded, staring at the table. Yeah, of course. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. The diner buzzed around us, conversations from other booths, the clatter of dishes in the kitchen. Finally, I broke the silence. Do you remember when Mom used to bring us here? Bradley looked up, surprised by the question. Yeah, every Sunday after church. You'd always order the same thing, grilled cheese and fries. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. And chocolate milkshake. Mom would tell us stories about her childhood, growing up in Kentucky. Remember, she'd talk about her grandmother's farm, the chickens and the garden. She loved us so much. I said quietly. Everything she did was for us. Working 2 jobs, sacrificing everything so we could have better lives than she had. Bradley's eyes filled with tears. He looked away, his jaw clenched. She'd be proud of you. I continued. How you've turned things around, the job at the warehouse, staying sober. Stop, Bradley whispered. Please stop. Why? He looked at me then, and I saw such pain in his eyes that my heart broke. Because I don't deserve it. Any of it. Bradley. I know. His face went white. Know what? Everything. The Tuesday visits. The woman you're working with. The property deed. He started to stand, but I reached across the table and grabbed his wrist. Wait. Just wait. Let me talk. Bradley sank back into the booth, his whole body trembling. Do you think I would ever steal from you? I asked directly. Do you honestly believe I would cheat you out of what's rightfully yours? The tears spilled over then, running down his face. I don't know. Christine showed me documents. Bank statements. She said you'd been lying to me for years. They were fake, Bradley. She forged them. Christine Holloway is a con artist. She has a criminal record going back over a decade. She targeted you specifically because she knew you were vulnerable. Bradley put his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. Other diners glanced our way, but I ignored them. I'm so sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. I wanted to believe her because I've made such a mess of my life. I thought maybe, just once, something would go my way. Maybe I could have enough money to start over, to fix everything. I moved to his side of the booth and put my arm around him. He turned into my shoulder and cried like he had when he was a child. Deep, racking sobs that came from somewhere soul deep. What have I done? He kept saying. What have I done? When he finally calmed down enough to talk, I showed him everything. Marcus' research, Christine's criminal history, Vincent's record, the intercepted communications showing their plan to frame Bradley and disappear. Bradley stared at the documents on my phone. His face ashen. They were going to leave me to take the fall. Yes, but it's not too late. We can still fix this. How? The FBI is involved now. They want to catch Christine and Vincent at the closing meeting. But they need your cooperation. You'd have to testify, tell them everything. You'll go to prison. Maybe. Or maybe they'll offer you a deal if you help them. Probation, community service, restitution. Marcus thinks we have a shot at keeping you out of jail if you cooperate fully. Bradley was quiet for a long time, processing everything. Finally, he looked at me. Why are you helping me? After what I did to you? Because you're my brother. Because Mom would want me to. Because I believe people can change, can do better. If someone gives them a chance. I don't deserve a chance. Maybe not. But I'm giving you one anyway. We sat there in that booth for another hour, talking through everything. I told him about the property upstate, explained that we'd both inherit equally once the deed was sorted out. I told him about my conversation with the lawyer, about how there had never been any cheating or lying, just a simple misunderstanding about a forgotten asset. Bradley listened, occasionally asking questions, mostly just absorbing the truth had been manipulated into denying. As we were finishing our cold coffee, I noticed a man at the counter watching us. He was in his 40s, wearing a leather jacket, with sharp, calculating eyes. I pulled out my phone and texted Marcus. Man at the counter, brown leather jacket. Is that who I think it is? Marcus responded immediately. That's Vincent. Has been watching Bradley. Don't react. I'm calling the FBI now. My blood ran cold. Vincent had been following Bradley, probably suspicious that he might crack under pressure. If he suspected Bradley was cooperating with authorities, there was no telling what he might do. I leaned close to Bradley and whispered, Vincent is here. At the counter. Don't. Look. Just listen. Bradley tensed beside me. We're going to get up and leave. Stay calm. Marcus is outside with the FBI. We're going to be okay. I signaled the waitress, paid the check, and we walked out together. Vincent didn't follow immediately, but I felt his eyes on us the entire way to the door. Outside, Marcus was waiting in his car with 2 FBI agents. They moved quickly, intercepting us before we reached my vehicle. Mr. Thompson, Bradley Thompson, I'm Special Agent Sarah Brennan with the FBI. We need you both to come with us now. Vincent Caruso is inside that diner, and we believe you may be in immediate danger. The FBI safe house was a nondescript ranch home in Farmington Hills, guarded by agents and equipped with surveillance equipment. Detective Sarah Brennan, Marca's contact in the FBI, sat us down and explained the situation with military precision. "Vincent following Bradley means they suspect something," she said. "We need to move the operation up. Tomorrow. Bradley, we need you to wear a wire and meet with Christine. Get her to admit details on tape." Bradley looked terrified, but he nodded. "What do I say? Act natural. Tell her you're nervous about the closing. Want to go over the plan one more time. Ask questions that get her to explain the fraud in detail. We need her to incriminate herself clearly." They spent the next 3 hours prepping Bradley. An FBI tech fitted him with a nearly invisible wire, a sophisticated device that would transmit everything directly to the surveillance van. They coached him on what to say, how to stay calm, how to handle Christine if she became suspicious. I watched my brother transform from terrified to determined. He had made terrible mistakes, but he was trying to make them right. The next morning, Bradley called Christine. I listened on speaker as he put on his best nervous voice. "Christine, can we meet? I'm freaking out about tomorrow. I just want to make sure we have everything straight." There was a pause. "You sound weird. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I'm just nervous. This is a lot of money. What if something goes wrong?" Another pause. Then, "Fine. Come to my place at 2 o'clock. But Vincent's going to be here. We need to make sure you're solid." The call ended. Bradley looked at me with fear in his eyes. "Vincent being there is actually better," Agent Brennan said. "We get both of them on tape. We have a stronger case." At 1:45, Bradley left the safe house in a car driven by an undercover agent. The rest of us followed in the surveillance van, parking 2 blocks from Christine's apartment in Royal Oak. I sat in the back with Agent Brennan and 2 other agents, watching video feeds and listening to audio. Bradley knocked on Christine's door at exactly 2 o'clock. She answered, wearing jeans and a casual shirt, her expression guarded. "Come in." The apartment was sparse, temporary, the kind of place someone rents when they don't plan to stay long. Vincent sat on the couch, his presence immediately threatening. He looked Bradley up and down like a predator assessing prey. "Sit down," Christine said, pointing to a chair across from Vincent. Bradley sat, and I could hear his breathing through the wire, quick and shallow. "So, what's got you so nervous?" Christine asked. "I just want to make sure we're clear on everything. Tomorrow's the closing. The buyer's going to be there. The title company. Everyone. What exactly happens?" Christine smiled. "It's simple. Vincent and I show up as representatives of your mother's estate. We present the forged deed and the authorization documents. The buyer transfers the money to the LLC account. We walk out with a cashier's check for $315,000. And my cut, $70,000, like we agreed. You'll get it as soon as we cash the check." In the van, Agent Brennan was recording every word. "That's good," she whispered. "Keep going, Bradley. What about my brother?" Bradley asked. "What if he finds out?" Christine laughed. "Your stupid brother never even opened that box. By the time he realizes what happened, well, be long gone." "Gone where?" "Mexico. Vincent and I have it all set up. New identities, new life. You should come with us." Bradley hesitated, and I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "Really? You want me to come?" Vincent spoke for the first time, his voice cold. "Sure, kid. We're a team." But something in Vincent's tone made my skin crawl. Agent Brennan leaned forward, listening intently. Christine pulled out a folder from a desk drawer. "Look, these are the final documents. Vincent finished them last night. Perfect forgeries. No one will question them." She spread papers across the coffee table. Bradley leaned forward, and the camera in his shirt button captured everything. Property deeds, transfer documents, notary stamps, all fake but professional looking. "This is really happening," Bradley said, his voice a mix of awe and fear. Tomorrow afternoon, Christine confirmed. And then we're all rich. Vincent stood abruptly. I need to check something. He walked toward Bradley, and in the van, every agent tensed. Vincent's hands moved to Bradley's collar, and I stopped breathing. You're wearing a wire, Vincent said flatly. Time seemed to stop. Then Vincent's hand shot to his jacket, and I saw the gun. FBI! Down on the ground! Now. The apartment door exploded inward as agents poured in, weapons drawn. Vincent spun toward them, his gun halfway out, but he never had a chance. 3 agents tackled him to the floor, while 2 others secured Christine, who screamed and tried to run for the bedroom. Bradley dove to the side, covering his head with his arms. It was over in less than 30 seconds. Vincent and Christine were cuffed, read their rights, and dragged to separate FBI vehicles. I rushed from the van into the apartment, finding Bradley on the floor, shaking but unharmed. It's okay, I said, helping him up. It's over. You're safe. Agent Brennan approached. Bradley, you did excellent work. That recording is everything we need. As they led Vincent past us toward the door, he turned and looked at Bradley with pure hatred. You're a dead man, you know that? You and your brother both. 2 agents shoved him forward and out of the apartment. Christine was crying, makeup running down her face. This is all a misunderstanding. I can explain. Save it for your lawyer, Agent Brennan said. After the chaos settled, we went back to the FBI office for statements. Bradley spent 4 hours giving his full testimony, holding nothing back. He explained everything. How Christine had approached him, how Shed manipulated him, shown him forged documents, convinced him I'd stolen from him. He admitted to entering my apartment, taking items, searching through my files. He admitted to everything, his voice breaking multiple times. When it was finally over, Agent Brennan met with us in a conference room. Bradley, you're still facing charges: breaking and entering, theft, conspiracy to commit fraud. But because you cooperated and helped us catch 2 career criminals, I'm recommending a plea deal to the prosecutor. Probation, restitution, and community service instead of prison time. Bradley started crying again. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. You'll be on probation for 5 years. You'll have to pay back everything you took, attend counseling, and any violation sends you straight to prison. Understand? Yes, I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. 2 months passed before everything was fully resolved. Christine and Vincent were indicted on multiple federal charges: conspiracy to commit wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, attempted murder after Vincent's gun was discovered to be loaded and ready to use. They were both looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. Bradley's plea deal went through: 5 years probation, 300 hours of community service, mandatory counseling, and full restitution for everything Head taken from me, which totaled approximately $4,200 when we calculated the cash, medications, and items Head sold. The property upstate was secured through the legal system. The deed had indeed been in our mother's wooden box, which the FBI recovered from Christine's apartment. Howard Richmond, my lawyer, worked with the county to officially transfer the property to Bradley and me as joint owners. On a cool October afternoon, Bradley and I drove up to Grayling to see the property for the first time. It turned out to be 43 acres of wooded land with a small cabin sitting on the edge of a pristine lake. The cabin needed work, but the land itself was beautiful, untouched, the kind of place our mother must have loved. We stood on the cabin's porch, looking out at the water turning gold in the afternoon sun. I can't believe she never told us about this, Bradley said quietly. She was saving it. For emergencies, I guess. Or maybe she just wanted us to have something special after she was gone. We decided to sell the property. Neither of us needed a cabin in the woods, and the money would help both of us secure our futures. The sale went through 3 weeks later for $332,000, slightly more than the estimate. After taxes and fees, we each received $151,000. Bradley tried to give me extra money from his share to cover what Head stolen, but I refused. "Keep it," I said. "Use it to build the life you deserve. I need to make this right." We compromised. Bradley would repay me over time, not from the inheritance, but from his earnings. Had gotten a job at the Veterans Center where I volunteered, working in facilities maintenance. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and it allowed us to rebuild our relationship gradually. Had also been sober for 93 days, the longest stretch in over a decade. He attended meetings 3 times a week and had a sponsor he talked to daily. One Saturday morning, we met at our mother's grave in Woodlawn Cemetery. Neither of us had visited in months, too caught up in the chaos of our lives. We brought flowers, white roses, her favorite. Standing at her headstone, Bradley broke down. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for what I did." I put my hand on his shoulder. "She'd forgive you. She always did. I don't know if I can forgive myself." "You will. It takes time." We stood there for a long while, just brothers at their mother's grave, trying to make peace with the past. As we were leaving, I said, "Mom left us more than money or property. She left us each other. We almost destroyed that. We came so close to losing what matters most." Bradley nodded, wiping his eyes. "I won't let it happen again. I promise." Gerald stopped by my apartment the following week with coffee and donuts. Had become a good friend through all of this. His paranoia about the hallway camera having literally saved my brother's life and our relationship. "So, everything worked out?" he asked, settling into my kitchen chair, as well as it could have. "Christine and Vincent are facing serious time. Bradley's getting help. The property's sold. We're going to be okay." Gerald raised his coffee cup. I laughed and clinked my cup against his. To paranoid neighbors who care enough to get involved. Bradley started volunteering at the Veterans Center every Tuesday and Thursday, the same days I worked. At first, it was awkward. But gradually, we fell into a rhythm. We'd have lunch together after our shifts, talking about everything and nothing, slowly rebuilding trust. 6 months after the FBI sting, we started attending family therapy together. The therapist, a woman named Dr. Patricia Harris, helped us work through decades of complicated family dynamics. We talked about our childhood, our father leaving, the pressure I'd felt as the older brother, the inadequacy Bradley had always struggled with. "You both needed to learn that love doesn't mean rescuing someone from consequences," Dr. Harris said during one session. "Real love means supporting someone through consequences, helping them grow." Those words stayed with me. Bradley moved into a better apartment, started taking college courses online in business management, began dating a woman he met at his recovery meetings. I watched him slowly transform into someone I barely recognized, someone confident and purposeful. One evening, almost a year after everything happened, Bradley and I sat on my apartment balcony watching the sunset over Detroit. The city sprawled before us, lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. "Can I ask you something?" Bradley said. "Anything. Why did you save me? After everything I did, you could have just let me go to prison. Let me face what I deserved. Why didn't you?" I thought about it for a long time before answering. Because giving up on you would have meant giving up on everything Mom taught us. Family isn't perfect people who never hurt each other. Family is imperfect people who choose to love each other anyway, who choose to fight for each other even when it's hard. I didn't deserve that choice. None of us deserve grace, but we give it anyway, because that's what makes us human. Bradley was quiet, staring out at the city. Then he said, "I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I was worth saving. You don't have to prove anything. Just be the person you were always capable of being." Looking back now, I realize that wooden box held more than just a property deed. It held a test a challenge my mother left behind without knowing it. Would we let money and betrayal destroy our family, or would we choose each other? We chose each other. I learned that trust isn't naive faith in someone's perfection. Real trust means believing in someone's capacity to grow, even after they've failed you. My brother betrayed me in the deepest way possible. But underneath that betrayal was pain, manipulation, and a desperate man who'd lost his way. I could have let anger destroy what remained of our family. Instead, I chose to fight for him, not against him. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is offer forgiveness when someone deserves judgment. Bradley had to face consequences, absolutely. But he also got a chance at redemption, and that made all the difference. Today, we're not just brothers by blood, we're brothers by choice. We're family in the truest sense of the word, built not on perfection but on the decision to keep choosing each other, even when it's difficult, even when we've hurt each other. The wooden box is gone, but what we found was far more valuable. A second chance to be the family our mother always hoped we'd be. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between justice and mercy with someone you love? Have you ever been betrayed by family? And if so, how did you find your way back to forgiveness? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story touched your heart or made you think differently about family, forgiveness, and second chances, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing to hear more real stories about life's toughest challenges and how we overcome them together. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Maybe someone struggling with a difficult family relationship, or someone trying to decide whether to offer forgiveness or hold on to hurt. Sometimes a story like this can help someone see their situation in a new light. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community where we share our struggles and our growth. I hope you and your loved ones find peace, healing, and the courage to choose love even when it's hard. Until next time, take care of each other out there.